Welcome, everyone. I'm France Hong, co-founder and CEO of Boodle AI, the creators of Boodlebox, and welcome to the AI Collaborative. This week, we're thrilled to have Jim Sterne with us, a dear colleague and someone who's been very, very thoughtful about the adoption of generative AI. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much, France. A pleasure and an honor to be here.
Yes, so for those who don't know you, we'd love if you give just a quick introduction about yourself and your background.
The elevator pitch. Always looking over the horizon at technology and how it can be applied to business. So in the 70s, it was personal computers, specifically Apple IIe's. And then in the 80s, it was business computers, which I was selling to companies that had never owned one before. The 90s was, hey, World Wide Web. And then it was, oh, you can measure the success of your website. So web analytics, digital analytics. And then machine learning was like, you know what, this is really important. And so this book over my shoulder, Artificial Intelligence in Marketing, was 7 years ago. So it was all machine learning. Now, of course, it's generative AI. And my stock in trade is something like professional explainer. I pester the engineers to explain it to me well enough that I can explain it to everybody else.
Great. When you say that, you bring up the memories of that scene in Office Space where I talk between the engineers and the customer.
Yeah.
That's great, Jim. So tell me about your journey into generative AI. Obviously, all of our journeys really only began a little over a year ago. So
it was November.
Yeah.
Everybody went, hey, look over here. You know, it's so weird. The personal computers took about 15 years to get on everybody's desk. And the smartphone took about 3 years to get into everybody's hands. And ChatGPT was on everybody's phone on the same day all over the world. This is a change management challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. And why do you think so let me scratch on that. So
sure.
Why is it a change management challenge? How is this technology different than the phone or computers, or is it the same?
Wow. No, it's extraordinarily different for a variety of reasons. First of all, the change management problem is we're not sure, the organization, the IT department, security people, the legal department, copyright and IP concerns, we don't know what it is. We don't know how it works. There is no user manual. It just got released into the wild. So until we have our arms around it, everybody is told, don't use it. And everybody says, sure. And I don't have it on my phone, so you can't stop me.
Yeah.
So everybody's using it, everybody's playing with it, everybody is doing things they shouldn't do that might be a risk to the company. So it is a catch-up problem. It's not a, here's a new technology, let's bring it in and show it to people and train them and convince them. It's like everybody has it. Now what do we do? So change management is a problem. How is it different? So in big ways, we went from coding, like this is exactly what I want the computer to do, to applications, spreadsheet, put in variables and relationships and it'll calculate for you, to predictive analytics, like solid statistics. So we went from deterministic to probabilistic to this end result was, I don't know, artistic, generative. So it's not a database, it's not a search engine, it's not a calculator. It generates stuff. So we're working very hard to put it in a box to say, look, here's some fine tuning, here's a vector database to work with, here are the rules. We're going to make small language models so you don't hallucinate and you only talk about what you're supposed to. We're making it as deterministic as we can, which is incredibly useful for productivity. Over here, it's creative. It generates, it invents, it makes stuff up. You can bounce ideas off it. I mean, imagine being a sophomore in college and that classic sophomore thing where you're questioning everything, that you stay up all night having long chat sessions with your friends and they fall asleep. ChatGPT doesn't fall asleep. It just keeps going and going and going. Yeah. And you can be wildly creative. So that is different. And we don't yet have, he said, shouting into the mirror, knowing that I'm going to be creating one in the next couple of weeks, a framework for how to be creative. What are the tenets of creative thinking, critical thinking, strategizing, invention? what is creativity now that we have a creativity engine? And then the cherry on top, which is why I'm so interested in Boodlebox, is creativity happens best in collaboration. You take 10 people and put them in a room with 10 different backgrounds and culture and age and knowledge, and they bounce ideas off each other like crazy. Now throw a generative AI system or three into the mix, and it's a creativity explosion.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jim. Yeah, I had the same reaction. And by the way, I love deterministic to probabilistic to artistic. I've never heard anybody say that before. I hope you've copyrighted it. That is a wonderful way to describe where AI has come from and where it is now. That is wonderful. You do a lot of thinking about marketing. That's been kind of your thing. I know you've attended some conferences, spoke at some conferences recently. For the marketers out there, right? What are some of the common challenges you think marketers are facing adopting generative AI? And that being said, we know marketers are oftentimes the earliest adopters of these types of technologies.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so generative AI tools for content creation were around before OpenAI
Mhm.
did its thing. So Jasper and Copy.ai and Copywriter, Writer.com. These are tools that were specifically large language models specifically created for the marketing department. Give us your brand voice, upload your annual report and all of your brochures, and it will generate stuff in your voice. It's like, oh, we need a press release that includes a quote from our CEO. Well, it knows the CEO's voice. So it's designed for purpose of content generation. Content generation is number one. Marketing department needs that more than anybody else. So they're the first adopters. Next comes workflow automation. So I want something that's going to read my incoming emails and understand enough of what's going on to draft a response. Don't automatically send a response, please. Don't automatically take anything it says for face value. And really increase speed of just workflow. I listened to a podcast last night about what Zapier is doing. And now you can ask Zapier to connect up with your HubSpot and LinkedIn and do it conversationally rather than even WYSIWYG drag and drop. So that's where we're all headed with this stuff. But the creativity part is the thing again that grabs my attention. The marketing department has two main tasks. One is understanding what the marketplace needs and how they respond to the message and what problem is being solved. And the other is the message. And this is where creativity, this is the Don Draper time, right? We're back to a spherical 35 millimeter slide projector is a carousel. You know, that kind of intuitive, emotional connection with other people, that's where marketing, that's where creatives come in.
Right.
And that's the sort of thing that generative AI can creativity engine.
Yeah. So what's holding marketers back then, right? So
Oh,
you
that's
painted
right.
a
Sorry, I
beautiful
lost the
picture,
thread.
right? Like,
Yeah, what's holding us back is it can be used for so many things. Where do we start? Corporate overlords say, no, you may not use it until we have policy in place. So I'm being held back by the powers that be. It's okay, I'm using it anyway. I'm being held back because I think it's a computer and I'm trying to use it like a search engine, and that's wrong. I'm held back because there's kind of no end in sight. There's so many things you can do with it. What's the best use case? And that's where the answer from everybody is, well, we don't know. Play with it, work with it, set aside time, set aside an hour a week just to do research and an hour a day just to fiddle with it. You know, is it it's really good at some things and is not really good at other things. My favorite experience within the first couple of weeks of ChatGPT coming out, wrote a 12 paragraph blog post. And I said, write an opening introduction paragraph for this. And after about an hour and a half of prompt engineering to get it to sound decent, I realized, well, I could have just written it for myself in 5 minutes. So
Right.
that was not a good use case. But then I said, please review this for structure and flow. And it said, well, you should take paragraph 7 and put it under paragraph 4. I thought, well, that's weird. So I did it. And it was so much better. This concept up here made the rest of it more understandable. Now, I had to fiddle with the transitions between paragraphs, but conceptually, from a flow perspective, I wouldn't have thought of that, and it made my output much better. So
Yeah.
what is holding people back? So many opportunities
Yeah.
and corporate control.
Yeah. That, by the way, I love your example, Jim. I find sometimes there are certain tasks where the ideation and the creation is fine, but there are tasks where having it review be a second opinion, right? It's so much more valuable. But it's kind of hard to know which one sometimes.
That's where playing with it matters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this idea of creativity, I'm really intrigued by a different level of question. Like, here's how I'm thinking about this. Here are the 12 points I want to make. Which ones will be the most evocative? Which ones can I connect to emotion the best? Um, what am I leaving out? If I choose this one over that one, what are the unintended consequences? I mean, the the open your mind kind of what if you had a mentor who knew so much, but like didn't really know what you were working on, and frankly wasn't always telling the truth. Like it's not trust but verify, it's only verify.
Yes.
But still, oh, I hadn't thought of that, is the magic.
Yeah. So for marketers who aren't where you're at, they haven't done playing around with, they want to get started, what's some low risk, high reward ways for them to start incorporating Gen AI?
Um, here's some content I've written. How can I make it more exciting? How can I make it more persuasive? How can I make it more professional? How can I make it more appealing to a chief marketing officer? How can I make it more appealing to a chief financial officer? You create personas for me. Here's what I sell. Here's who I think my customers are. What other personas might I be pursuing?
Mhm.
Um, be inventive, I guess, is the rule.
Yeah. Those are great beginner use cases. And I think those are ones that really allow generative AI to shine, and are also interactive, right? And it's
Yeah.
not something you would go to Google for, right? I mean, I think a lot of people when they first start off, we're kind of creatures of habit, and so
Yes.
the first thing you put in generative AI is like Chinese restaurants, right? Because you think it's
Yes.
Google search engine, but it's not, right? You need to treat it like a collaborative coworker. What would you ask a collaborative
Yeah.
coworker, right?
And this is true for everything. I mean, the first television programs broadcast were a man standing in front of a microphone with paper in his hand, reading a script. Radio on television, because that's all we knew, right? The first websites we had, brochureware. That's all we knew.
Yeah.
Then we could do interactive, Web 2.0. Ooh, right? So we're approaching this with what can you this is where, so people worry about, am I going to lose my job? It's like, no, you're not. If I ask the machine to write me an 8-page essay on the Napoleonic Wars, I'm going to take the output and go, wow, that's pretty amazing. But I'm going to have no idea if it's true or not.
Yeah.
If I were a history professor, I could read it and go, well, half of this is just crap. But I'm not a subject matter expert. So subject matter expertise is number one. Do you understand marketing? Do you understand your marketplace? Do you understand the value your product or service is delivering?
Yeah.
Okay, now it's a more useful tool because you're bringing your expertise to the table.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, Jim. Like one of the things I say often is if you can't produce A plus work without generative AI, you're not producing A+ work only using generative AI, right? Like you're just not going to get there. So
Yeah, yeah. Boston Consulting Group did a huge study with like 700 of their associates. They had a pretend company with made up data, and half just did the usual review, and the other half used AI. And of course, the AI people did more, better, faster, cheaper. So that's fine. But within this group who used AI, the people who were below average immediately became average. The people who were superior became much better. And the people in the middle were kind of meh. They weren't sure. They didn't have the subject matter expertise they needed.
right.
So if you're only middling, you will continue to only be middling.
So Jim, you mentioned I love this idea of every time we have a technology transformation, it borrows the top paradigms of the previous technology and
Yeah.
it takes some time to come up with innovative use cases. I'm putting you on the spot, but have you come across those kind of innovative use cases of generative AI already? Something that breaks the paradigm?
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised it hasn't completely taken over yet, but I believe prompt engineering is old school. I believe that is us thinking that we're going to tell the computer what to do. And instead, the computer is going to ask us what we want. And so it will be the computer prompting us. Um, Now, the first thing I think, of course, is Clippy, right? Oh, it looks like you're trying to write a resume. Can I help you? It's like, go away. This is in the future. And in a year, 5 years, I don't know. Every website will have an avatar that says, hi, welcome to our website. How can I help you? What are you looking for? What can I accomplish for you today? Oh, you want our phone number? Sure, here it is. You want to talk to somebody about a specific use case? Well, here's what we know, and here's some people to talk to. And that will be navigation. Software will not be a program that you run, it will be a request that you make. You'll turn to the system and say, I have employees in California and Georgia and in New York and run payroll. And it will go out and find the rules and
Right.
the taxes and the legislation, and it will execute and send out. And it won't write a piece of software that I will execute the next month. Next month, I'll say, run payroll. And that will be software soon. So that's a different, we're not used to that yet.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're not. And even as you describe it, my head starts to both get excited and hurt at like, how do we,
Yes.
we're creatures of habit, right? Like I've got decades of using applications, right? And
Yeah.
having to ask, tell a piece of software to do something by widgets and buttons and instructions and code and knowing exactly what's going to come out the other side, right? I don't know if you've heard this experience. People ask me all the time, like, can generative AI do X? And I was like, I don't know. Let's try, right? And then sometimes you're very surprised and you're like,
Yeah.
what other technology exists where we actually don't know the outer bounds of it? We actually have to like
Yeah.
experiment and figure it out.
So one of the tricks that I do is for ChatGPT with custom instructions, I tell it every time I give it a prompt that it's to ask me 3 questions and generate a new prompt based on those questions, execute, and then ask me 3 more questions. And we're going to just go through that cycle until I say, okay, I'm done. Give me the result. This is me telling it to prompt me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that technique. I just mentioned experimentation. You mentioned experimentations. How can marketers foster a culture of experimentation and continuous learning to make the most out of generative AI?
Well, that is a corporate culture question. Do you celebrate failure as a learning opportunity or do you fire people for it? And that literally is culture. Um, there are a couple of people that I'm watching closely who have spent a long time, well, who spent a career. In fact, there's one guy named Craig Sullivan, and I will recommend for everybody to go to LinkedIn and find him. His um, social media handle is optimize or die. And he's just published a book that is about using generative AI in experimentation and conversion rate optimization. And he's done a deep dive. That's the sort of thing that I look to others to say, you've done the actual hands-on research. Now tell us what you've learned.
Got it. Well, let's go ahead and turn to the attendees and see if anybody has any questions. Folks, please feel free to post a question in the comments or in Q&A and for Jim, or if you want, raise your hand and we'll open up the mic to you. So while we're waiting for a question to come in, so it's Jim Sterne, Sterne.
Yes.
And he's on LinkedIn and several other platforms as well.
Indeed. I am findable. I've had the same email address for 35 years. So yes, I get a lot of spam.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and allow Darren to ask a question here. Darren, welcome.
Hi, I wasn't actually going to ask a question, but I've enjoyed the program. I was actually just going into the chat to see what people were saying. But thank you, Jim, for your input. And France, thank you. I appreciate your series that I've been checking in regularly. So appreciate you both.
Okay, Darren, let me ask, what is your role? What do you do on a daily basis?
So I'm a legal counsel, and I actually use I use ChatGPT and Gemini quite a bit in my practice. It's fantastic for generation, especially like ideation. You put a blank page in front of me and say, write a memo, and I panic. So just to get things going, I like what you said about verify always. That's especially important in the legal side for checking references and legal terms. But just to get the ball rolling is fantastic. And I was particularly intrigued in this because I've been helping some colleagues out with some early stage startups. France, you actually know my colleague Fu. And in his business, he's looking to start to do more marketing and trying to leverage AI in that aspect because they don't really have the marketing background and haven't spent the time on it. So, just intrigued on what kind of tools and things to be aware of as they begin down that path.
I mean, again, we're stuck in this, gosh, you can use it for anything. So the frame of mind is, what would I ask Google that I'm going to get value out of Google? Directions. When is the store open? Questions of fact, right? When was Croatia independent? Questions of fact. But for ideation, for comparing two concepts, for fill in the blank. What's another way to say this? Give me 3 analogies. That kind of ideation is just, this is where the magic happens. So, in a startup, create, go to ChatGPT, pay your $20 a month, use custom instructions and explain, you are my startup mentor. You have years of experience. Here's my current situation. What kind of person should I be hiring next? How many sales do I need, or how much revenue do I need before I hire a PR company? Just ask it to be your startup mentor and rock and roll.
Yeah, and I think it's great too. I mean, just simple things like SEO, so putting in prompts where you can have it scan the website and spit back terms at you that you should put into your, for keyword prompts and things of that nature.
Here's my website. Here are my competitors' websites. What would somebody who cares about this stuff, who might be a prospective buyer, what is not being mentioned by anybody's website that I can use to differentiate myself?
That's a great one.
Yeah, that's a great one, Jim. I actually hadn't tried that. That's fantastic.
Jim, I'm going to steal that one, and I'll make sure I'll reference back to you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, it looks like we've got another question. It's from Kathleen. The question, well, first, Jim, could you repeat the name of the Optimize or Die author, please?
Craig Sullivan.
Okay,
and
great.
he's in the UK.
Fantastic.
So he's findable on LinkedIn.
Terrific. So the question from Kathleen is, how would you suggest navigating the "this looks like ChatGPT wrote it" fear? Sometimes people who are nervous about adopting AI feel it's taking away personal touch or personal work. And in marketing, it's an interesting line.
So as an author with, a dozen books to my name, so let's see. I like public speaking because it helps me understand how I feel. And then I like writing because it helps me understand what I think. Now, I ask ChatGPT to write something for me, and it's always 200% number of words. It's always twice as many words as necessary. So the first thing is just cut out any, strunk and white, make it as simple as possible. It is very easy to discover or to get the feeling that, oh, ChatGPT wrote this. It's instantly apparent there is a style that it has that you want to avoid at all costs.
Got it. So I've put in the comments Jim's terrific LinkedIn article about enterprise adoption of GenAI. It sounds like he's going to be publishing a follow-up to that about creativity, which I'm going to eagerly write. Jim, it's been great having you as a guest today. If folks want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
LinkedIn is really great. I'm at targeting.com, and just for ease of use, here's Craig Sullivan's LinkedIn profile as well. Yeah, my email address is everywhere. I'm kind of Googleable.
Okay.
Oh, look, there I am. Thank you.
Great. Jim, fantastic to have you today. Everyone, thank you for joining this wonderful discussion about generative AI and marketing. Jim, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you again, and have a great day.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you.